Hello and welcome to the show. It is May 19th, 2024. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the show. Today we're talking about getting demonetized, and well, since it's a call-in show, anything else you want to talk about, really. I love talking about what people believe and why. If you have an interesting or strange belief or just a religious belief that you want to talk about, this is the place for it. Also, if you have philosophy questions, I love getting deep dives into that kind of stuff. So these are the conversations that we have, and I am happy to have them. Let me turn my volume up a bit here, make sure I can hear myself. I'm happy to see a caller already on the line, but before I get into any details, let me throw up the phone number for people who want to call in toll free. You can call 412-SKEPGEN, that is 412-753-7436, or if you want that crystal clear audio, you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Again, it is a toll-free call, and we're waiting to hear from you. Definitely. That is what makes this show tick. That said, let's talk a little bit about getting demonetized, yeah? Because I'm finding more and more that YouTubers and TikTokers have been they've been censoring themselves for using just normal language. And it's an interesting thought. I'm not sure how it works with TikTok because I've avoided TikTok, but I've used a lot of really intense language on YouTube and haven't seen a dip in, well, maybe a few times. I'm not sure. I got to think about it. But I wanted to save this conversation for on air because I wanted to see what you think and what experiences you may have had about it. Saying grape because people don't want to talk about sexual assault or rape. Saying unalive instead of dead, or using the word suicide. You know, is that something that will get you flagged and completely kicked out of your platform? Will you get a strike for it? Will you get blacklisted? Well, I just said that, and I will let you know. But my experience tells me that that hasn't been the case. What other words have you heard? Because have you heard people try and substitute out? It's interesting. I'm not one of those language purists that thinks that, oh, no, everybody needs to be politically correct. That's why they're doing it. I get it that sometimes if people feel like they're getting kind of stifled by the algorithm, they're trying to get their way around it and not have to face the consequences of getting, shadow banned. So I get that, but I'm wondering if we're overdoing it. I'm wondering if people are self-censoring just to get ahead of it, or if it's been a problem that we've had that is genuinely like an issue. So I don't know. That said, I've got some people who definitely definitely have opinions here. Call in 412-753-7436 or tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. But we've got other things to talk about too. Let's start off with our first caller today and go with William in Arkansas. William, you are live on the air. How's it going?
It's going. How's it going with you?
It's well. I'm just honestly just vibing with the day, and
it's a good day for vibing.
It really is. It really is. I know that people track V and or ask about V all the time. V has left for a conference, and so I'm left to my own devices. And I'm eating way too much pizza. That said,
is there such a thing as way too much pizza?
Yes, actually, it turns out there is.
Fair enough.
But
I hope V has a safe trip, and I hope they, everything goes well for them.
Well, they messaged me this morning saying that they landed okay. So they just got there to the UK, and so. I'm glad they're doing.
Good.
Yeah, definitely. But what did you want to talk about today?
Okay, so I asked about this in chat to see if this would be a thing to talk about. They said you might be interested in it.
Yeah.
Basically, I have a kind of a vague idea of what philosophy is, and in the sense of like how most people probably understand it. I also know that, like, by definition, I guess most people have, or everyone has a philosophy, because philosophy is just kind of what you believe and what you think and stuff. So, everyone who thinks has one. I was just wondering, like, is there is there like an actual school of philosophy that I might subscribe to without realizing it? Or is it just or am I just like a grab bag thing? And how would I even determine that? Can you help me out there?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. So it's kind of difficult to give a straight answer. I guess the best answer I can give is it has been in the social consciousness for so long that even if you haven't studied philosophy in a class or something like that, you've definitely picked up on major philosophical concepts just interacting in society. It makes me think of, I've talked to plenty of people who maybe come from different countries or were homeschooled and didn't watch a bunch of movies, and yet they know the plots to all of these really important movies because they just kind of picked it up through osmosis, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that most... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I think most of us definitely have a working understanding, or at least are pulling from some major philosophical concepts without really realizing it. So philosophy can really be broken into a whole lot of different things. One of them is talking about what is. And another is what ought. So when you say my philosophy, most people are saying, what they think ought to be the case. And that can be philosophy. It's kind of a meta study, thinking about thinking. So I think another thing people don't really realize about philosophy is it is so old that it predates other major subjects. So
I knew that much.
Yeah, like a lot of the symbols that we use in mathematics come from philosophy, and so it's just something that is kind of branched out. Let me think here. I would definitely advise just for funsies, because I mean I'm just a amateur guy on the internet, who is obsessed.
No, I know you're not an amateur. I've seen you enough.
I'm just some asshole. I don't have a PhD and a degree in philosophy, but I'm obsessed with it, and I have been for many, many, many years. So I would definitely advise, like, take a class, or even if you just like if you like watching YouTube videos, Crash Course Philosophy.
Crash Course Philosophy. Okay.
Is a really, really cool series of videos that gives a lot of information. Obviously, it's all surface level, but it's a lot of really good stuff. I think that it's an interesting time for philosophy because up until relatively recently, we've been obsessed with Western philosophy, stuff that comes from Europe. And there's more and more that's coming out with, what philosophies have been in, indigenous groups, right, in South America. Yeah. People obsess over Eastern philosophies in a really cringy way sometimes, but like, I don't know. There are a lot of places to go with it. Like, do you want to know kind of what philosophies you might be taking part in, or do you want to know?
Yeah, that.
Okay.
Essentially what philosophies I might be taking part in without realizing it.
Sure. I
don't really know how to begin there. Like, I know things I value, like, as far as thought and function in like my everyday life. I don't know if that would actually like be things you would need to know for that.
It's kind of difficult because it's an amalgam, what you pick up from one person might be I think it's a better question to find out what parts of philosophy are you interested. Are you interested in like crime and punishment? In which case, like I would check out utilitarianism and everything that kind of that is in that realm. Are you interested in morality and ethics? Are you interested in what is and what isn't in the world? Are you interested in what
do you mean by what is and what isn't?
Sure.
That one might be a little. I have trouble with like certain abstract things. I have autism, so it tends to make it certain. Like I understand morals to an extent, and I understand like laws and punishments and crimes and all that. So that I get, but yeah, is and what isn't is a little vague.
Sure. So ontology is what is. It's not necessarily what you think about it. It's not necessarily what should and shouldn't be. It's just what is. And people have
what is function like.
I'll give you if you were to hold an apple in your hand, you'd look at it, right, and you'd go, okay, that is an apple. Cool.
Okay.
And what is a pink elephant? Does it exist in the same way that an apple does?
Okay.
How can you describe it? Or
okay. So would this be an example of that? Like if I'm holding a pencil, that's a standard yellow wooden pencil, there is the pencil, which is the wood with the graphite core that physically exists, because also there is the word pencil, which conveys that idea even if you don't physically are holding one. Is that sort of what you're talking about there?
So it quickly can devolve into semantics, which that definitely is. Like Plato, Plato, believed that there was a world of forms, and there's the perfect version.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's Platonism.
Platonism. Yeah. I've heard of Platonism.
And
I think that's a very weird thing.
Well, it kind of answers some basic questions, that some people have. I don't ascribe to it, but it definitely has its appeal, because if I were to ask you what is a chair, right? You could describe a chair to me, but I could show you another chair that doesn't look at all like what you described, and we would both agree that it's a chair.
I don't know. I could probably get to that.
You think so?
I would describe a chair, a thing that you can, a thing with a flat surface or flat-ish surface you can sit on with a minimum of 3 legs for stability.
Okay, a table can be a chair then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Like a lot of things can be chairs at that point.
Yes.
Desks can be chairs. Right.
Yep.
It's. But recognizing that a chair is different from a table is important, right? Like you understand there's a distinction there.
I understand that people make a distinction. I don't agree with that distinction, actually.
Why?
Because, quite frankly, there isn't actually a functional difference between them. That's my whole thing. If I'm sitting on a table as a chair, it becomes a chair.
Okay. So linguistically, we create these definitions of things so that we can interact with them. And what
I get that. Like, I understand that, but
what Plato would say is that there is the perfect ideal chair in this Platonic realm, and that all chairs are actually taking part in having this kind of relationship with this Platonic chair, and that is how they get their chairness. And what that does is that kind of gets you away from having those questions of, is everything a burrito? Or is everything a sandwich? Or is pizza a sandwich? Those kinds of conversations you hear people have online. I don't ascribe to Platonism, but it definitely does offer an answer there. And then you get to the different theories of truth, right? What is true? You get correspondence theory, coherence, you get... what are the others? It'll come to mind as soon as this call is done, I'm sure. But
that's okay.
Yeah, no, it just
have that happen all the time.
I think that for you, if you're interested in that, study ontology. If you want to look up ontology, ontology, I think that'd be a good place to start. And then if you have one that you think everybody should agree on, call me. Let's find out.
I probably won't.
No.
I think I have trouble with I think this is one of those things where I acknowledge my troubles with a lot more abstract things that other people do get, and so it wouldn't be fair for me to basically put that on other people in my head, because quite frankly, my issues with abstract can't relate to other people's brains, unless they have the same autism I have, essentially. Which is very weird to say, because autism has I think I asked myself 40 different diagnostic criteria, but only 3 are needed, basically.
Oh, it's a massive spectrum.
40 or more. Yeah, it's a big spectrum. So
yeah, okay.
Acknowledging that as a thing doesn't, to me, I can't really put that onto other people, because
mean, that makes you more considerate than most. But I'd still be happy to talk to you. So regardless, though.
Oh, yeah. I just thought to myself, this might be something for you, because I've watched you on Talk Even when you were on Talk Even and stuff. And I watched a lot of the stuff you a lot of the past stuff that are all over the YouTube for you.
There's an unbelievable amount of hours of me on the internet. I'm surprised by it, but I'm glad you followed, and I'm glad you're watching the show. Thank you.
Oh yeah, and it was sort of like how I don't know what started this today, where I had a question of is the sky a real thing, or is the sky just a concept? Because,
concepts can be real, just real in a different way.
Well, yeah. I mean, is the sky a physical thing? Is there a physical point in our atmosphere where it's no longer sky, or is it just a conceptual thing? Because I actually do think that concepts are real, just not real.
Okay.
I should say physical. I should have said physical. That's actually an accurate word.
Damn it, because the word real is so much more juicy, but I gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, William.
Real gets very weird very fast.
It really does. It really, really does. William, thank you for calling in. I appreciate you.
No problem. Thanks for taking it. Y'all have a good day.
You too.
I hope you listen to cool calls.
Yeah,
maybe some spicy calls. Who knows?
I've got some. I've got a religious caller calling next, so let's see where we go.
Oh, good.
All right, take care.
All righty. Bye.
That's a nice start to the day. I like that. I hope William finds some places to really dig in and get to explore philosophy, because it is such an incredible field. It really, really is. Okay. Let's talk to a theist caller. It's been a while. Joseph in Kansas. You are live on the show. How's it going, Joseph?
Going well.
Good. Okay, so it says that you're a religious caller and you have some thoughts about atheists. Talk to me.
I am. I always wish that that the options, atheist and theist, were not the only options on certain call-in shows. My answer when I get, are you atheist or theist? My answer on the phone is always theist, barely.
Hey, this is probably one of the only atheist call-in shows where I'm not going to dig into you because you're a believer, so you're good. What's interesting to me is the conversations and getting to dig into some good stuff. So it sounds like, it looks with the description that you've had some interactions with atheists that are a problem. Talk to me. What's going on?
It's deistic. That's the closest category that I fall into.
Okay.
And we've talked before. This isn't the first time I've called in. In that original conversation is my deistic belief is that the one or that God, he, she, it, whatever, took was the expansion of the Big Bang. That was it.
Okay.
I've heard some people phrase it as the Big Bang was God exploding, and that was it.
Yeah, that falls squarely into deism.
Thing is
Joseph?
Affect my life one iota. Ask me, are you religious? I'll say I'm deist, but it doesn't affect my life at all.
I mean, if you believe in a, that a deity happened, but that's all there is to it, then it definitely doesn't fall into any of the big theisms. So or any reason why that would fall into your daily life. So I get that.
The thing is, though, is what I told the call screener was I feel like a lot, certainly not all, but a lot, theists are anti-theists, even if they to be.
So Joseph, I don't know why, but your audio keeps cutting out, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. But it's like the beginnings and the ends of your words are getting cut out. Like you'll say something and the first half a second gets cut out, and so I'm doing my best to piece it together. But if I ask you to repeat yourself, would you be so kind? Joseph?
Perfectly.
I think I got it. I think I might have been my fault. We'll find out in just a second, won't we? Okay. Could you say that last part again?
Make sure we were all right.
Say again?
Is audio okay?
Yes. I just needed to fix the... So I had a compressor on that I think was pushing your audio. So I apologize for that. Go ahead.
Let me give a hypothetical. Were to call in about religion, and I were to say I'm a Christian, and we were to discuss that,
mm-hmm.
I might ask you to give me some of the issues that you have with Christianity, and you might say, "Oh, there are Christian groups who are anti-LGBT," and I would say, "Nope, our church is of the LGBT community."
Okay.
Say, "Oh, well, they're anti-science," and I would say, "Nope, our church fully accepts science and does. We're not young Earth creationists. We accept evolution, etc." And you could run down kind of the list of, problems that exist in the Christian church. Would inevitably get to one of two replies,
okay.
Which would be, "Oh, well, you're just cherry picking," or we would get to the, "Oh, you've defined it down, so you basically don't qualify as a Christian anymore," which is just the atheist version of the no true Scotsman fallacy.
Yep.
And
absolutely. I hate both of those answers, personally. I try not to do either of them. Calling out somebody's cherry picking is weird because you're asking them what they believe. And so being upset with them for telling you what they believe is interesting. Yeah, no, I'm with you so far.
Like deism has become kind of a catch-all term for people who might describe themselves as spiritual but not religious.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like deism is a thought that is not damaging anyone's lives.
Sure.
Atheism is interested in, a scientific and fully rational,
Not true,
something.
Unfortunately. A lot of atheists online like to pretend that being atheists make them more rational or more scientifically minded. But the fact is there are people who are atheists for awful reasons. And there are people who are just as callous and cruel and prone to bad thinking, as religious folks. So I definitely wouldn't want to characterize atheism as that, because I don't think they deserve it. Joseph, are you there? Joseph? Joseph, I'm having some trouble here. You keep cutting out. Is there a way that I can get you to call back in? If I take another call, could you try dropping out and coming back, and we could see if your connection is a little bit better? Hello?
Do that.
Yeah, you're definitely cutting out. So what I'm going to do is I want to pick up this conversation, but I know that if I'm having trouble hearing you, I know the listeners are having trouble hearing you too. So let's go from there. I'm going to move on to the next caller. I do have room for more callers, though. If you want to call in and talk, 412-SKEPGEN, that's tiny.cc, 412-SKEPGEN, that's 412-753-7436, or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN and keep this show going, because we always need callers. In the meantime, let's talk to Jim in Ohio. Jim, you are on the show.
Morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good. By the way, if I start coughing, I'm having some asthma problems.
Gotcha. No worries. If there are any kinds of problems, then I'd be happy to take the rest of the caller or the question off the air or off of the call if you want. What did you want to talk about?
Okay. Well, I lost track of time, so I missed the first 15 minutes of your show.
That's okay.
But I did see the notes about you being demonetized.
I have not been demonetized. So, so what?
So maybe it was just generalizing, demonetization as a subject, not personally.
Absolutely. Jim, are you on TikTok?
Pardon?
Are you on TikTok?
No. I don't do any of it. I'm strictly on YouTube and
some
other things. I don't do social things.
Have you noticed YouTubers using different language, like unalive? Or grape, or what's happened is TikTokers and then subsequently YouTubers have been so worried about the different algorithms catching what they're saying and then not showing them out because of the language they're using. It's the same reason why a lot of call-in shows get worried about cussing, because oh no, if I say fuck on the air, I might get shadow banned.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because my platform is smaller, but even when I was on a much, much bigger platform, I never really saw that impact. But things are changing all the time. And so what some content creators have found is that if they say the word, for sexual assault, rape, that their videos get shown less. That they get punished for saying, you're using that word, or for mentioning the concept of suicide or death at all. and so they'll use different euphemisms, or they'll say, oh, that person, unalived themselves, or that person is became unalived, when they fell off a cliff or something like that, instead of they died, because for some reason they're worried about the word death. Another one that I've found is porn. People are saying corn, CORN, instead of porn, and it's blowing my mind. And so I'm sitting here. I started this episode up wanting to start the conversation on why the hell are people doing that. If you haven't seen it, then I couldn't ask you. But if you called not knowing that, then I didn't put time enough at the beginning to describe what the subject was. So that said, hopefully that helps. Well, and if anybody does want to call in who has experienced that, or knows why, or has been shadow banned because they used it, I want to hear about it.
Well, one example you gave was suicide, and people are becoming more aware about suicide, like how they'll tell, if you or someone else or so. They should be out so that people are aware that people have suicidal tendencies. If you can't talk about them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not saying people aren't talking about them. I'm saying that they're self-censoring in order to talk about them. And I'm wondering if that's really a problem that we're having.
And the fact that YouTube doesn't seem to feel obligated to tell them why. Like, there was one channel I watched called Casually Comics, which is just about comic books, nothing controversial. And in one of the videos, he talked about how YouTube struck her or demonetized her, and she doesn't know why, because like I said, it's just about comics. Nothing really controversial. So when she tried to ask about it, all they kept sending her back was, read the community guidelines. How is she supposed to avoid something if she doesn't know what the problem is?
A lot of smaller channels have that issue. I have been around on YouTube for a while. I think the community guidelines are really specific nowadays. They're a lot better, but I don't know the specifics on that one. That said, I think the question probably doesn't make a lot of sense that you called in about, since you didn't have a full, clear understanding about the subject of the day. But Jim, thank you for calling in.
Could I make one more example, because this is kind of serious? Like, I understand that they seem to have banned the word Nazi, and on these history channels like World War II, how can you talk about World War II without mentioning Nazi?
I don't think people are not talking about Nazis. I think people have been talking about Nazis for a long time. I don't think that I've seen a History Channel episode that has shied away from the word Nazi, so I don't know why that would be I don't know. I don't know how that's a talking point.
Are we concerned about offending Nazis? I would hope we do offend them.
Jim, who's trying to stop people from saying that word?
Oh, well, I don't know, but it's been some time since I've watched some History Channels. But so I may be unclear about this or not right, but it seems to me like when they mention Nazis, it's a little clip in their speech that they cut out a word or censored the word. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't seen. I don't know. A chance to watch any of these videos yet.
If you get some info about that or some detail that we could tuck into, just give me a call.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for letting me rant.
No worries, Jim. I hope you feel better. It sounds like your allergies are kicking your butt.
Oh yeah, I love summer.
Sounds like not so. Sounds like summer doesn't love you so much. Jim, take care of yourself.
Okay, you too. Have a nice day.
You too. All right. It looks like our deist caller, Joseph, is calling back. Let's cross our fingers and hope that things are a little bit better. Joseph, you are on the air.
Hi, am I sounding clearer?
You are. Do you have a different connection?
Yes, I went to the tiny URL and I'm using my headphones.
It sounds so good. Joseph, always do this. Please.
I'll remember it for future reference.
Oh my gosh, you have a nice voice. I couldn't tell. The phone was just doing you dirty, my friend. All right. Talk to me. So before you cut out, actually, you know what? Can we just like refresh this because there was so much cut out that I'm worried. Okay, hit me.
Let me just break it down much simpler. Because generally speaking, I think at this point in modern, 2024, insane religious people aren't as influential as they used to be, at least not in the United States. Obviously, yes, it is still a problem, but I don't think it's as massive a problem as it was.
Joseph, Roe v. Wade got overturned, my friend.
Yes, I understand. Obviously, yes, there are massive issues still, but yes, Roe v. Wade got overturned, but that was done against the will of how many people? What percentage of civilians support the right to an abortion?
So this is where there was a caller a few weeks ago who was calling in about wanting to make sure you vote, and it's important to be counted, but if the majority mattered, then Roe v. Wade wouldn't have gotten overturned. The fact is the majority doesn't matter, and so we do need to take into account that there are enough to have done it.
Yes, I understand the issue. I do understand what you're saying. I apologize if that sounded crass.
No. So if I don't bring it up, then the comments will flay us both.
Oh, I'm sure.
Go ahead.
I can imagine what the chat looks like right now. But it's let me rewind.
Sure.
Not that Christians are not as don't affect society as much as they would, but let me specify that young Earth creationists are not something that you're going to run into as often as you would, say, 50 years ago. Kent Hovind has become a laughing stock for the most part. So have people like Ken Ham, that kind of stuff. Like, yes, they're still present and it's still an issue and we should fight against it, obviously. But it's not nearly as ever present as it seemed to be even 20 years ago. And I feel like since that's no longer an issue, yes, when you see people that, believe in young Earth creationism and that kind of stuff, it's easy to point and laugh at them. But it feels like a lot of religion gets lumped into that because of, like any form of religion, deism included, because if I tell you I'm a deist and we have a conversation and you might say, oh, there's no, real rational or scientific way to prove that that the God that you believe in, even if it is a God that doesn't interfere with our universe at all, there's no way to prove, scientifically or rationally that it is a real thing. So you are believing something that is not provable. Even though it doesn't affect your life at all, it's still a problem. So it comes across as like, oh God, these deists, first they say they believe in a God that, doesn't interfere with the universe. Next thing you know, they're going to fly a plane into a building. Like, that's how it comes across some of the time.
That's how it feels to you.
Yeah, some of the time, yes. Obviously not all the time. I don't.
So, Joseph, you definitely sound like the person who could be the kind of person who I would love to have as a friend. The fact that you are a deist doesn't necessarily bother me, but the interactions that you're having online, I can absolutely understand. I feel like there are two conversations that are being had, and they're getting conflated with each other. One of them is, can we interact together socially and make a better world? And we don't have to have the same agreement. We don't have to agree on everything in order to do that. We find partnerships and allies in each other so that we can have that bigger group that can be effective. And so that I worry that some atheists online conflate that with the other type of conversation. The other type of conversation is you and I sitting together over a beer, going over just your epistemology,
Right.
and that is something that you and I both need to want to enter into for a conversation. And we can have that conversation right now if you want, but I feel like there's a meta conversation that you need to have addressed first. And that is that being a deist is, I hope you take this in the way that I'm saying it and don't. It is one of the most benign beliefs I can imagine.
It's and I do realize that. I do also think I mentioned before I had to hang up and call back. It has deism has become kind of a catch-all. I think to a degree for people who might say that they are spiritual but not religious. Because I learned about deism, I had it described to me for the first time when I was like a freshman in high school. And at that point, I didn't really consider myself a Christian any longer at that point. And I was curious about, is there a God, what? But it wasn't something that I was actively searching into. It was kind of just something that I would occasionally think about.
Yeah.
And then I had deism described to me, and that immediately made sense to me. And so from that point on, if somebody asked me, what religion are you? I would say deist, even though deist isn't technically like an organized religion.
Yeah.
But when I say it's a catch-all, I've had conversations with people who say they are deists, who say they believe prayer works, who say that miracles are a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's almost oxymoronic. That's like saying you're a married bachelor. It's, you're a deist, but, I pray and God answers me.
So it feels like there are more specific words that they could use that'd be a better fit for them.
Sure.
Absolutely. Sure. So what's funny is for me in my journey, when I kind of moved into that whole woo-woo kind of, because it was the people who smelled like patchouli and wore a whole lot of jade, and they were the ones who were like, hey, we've got cool drugs that'll help you see the universe, man. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's do that. And what I heard described was pantheism or panentheism, this idea of a great kind of global subconscious that everyone is taking part in, that people could maybe tap into to psychically communicate with or understand people better. And I think for me, if we're having this conversation, the problem that I have with deism is that if it's kind of in the same bucket as different kind of pantheisms as well, and that is
to a point.
Well, it's not hurting anybody necessarily. Okay, my cat just walked up and showed the entire world her butthole. I'm so sorry. I just don't have a good reason to. Like, I don't have any convincing anything that points toward that. And so deism is kind of on the same chopping block as all of them, that if I were to accept deism, why am I not accepting any of the others? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so for me, it's a question of consistency. I
Right.
personally found it inconsistent to accept deism and not accept other things that don't have, a lot of evidence.
Just to round back, and I'll be as concise as I can be here about, what's your justification for being deistic. Mine is a single issue, and And this is something that, you can hear on call-in show. I'm sure I've heard it on Skeptic Generation before, of people describing God as the, timeless, spaceless, disembodied mind. And one of my favorite replies that I've heard to someone saying, that God is timeless and spaceless, is that if you're saying something is timeless and spaceless, that means it has existed nowhere and never.
Yep.
And my reasoning for being deistic is when you describe the universe and you describe the Big Bang, it's always, in layman's terms, described as the expansion of a singularity that occurred, 13.8 billion years ago, give or take. And my question is always then, did the singularity exist? Because if the Big Bang was T equals 1, then the universal singularity, almost by necessity, existed at a point, even if that's a bit oxymoronic, at a point where time and space weren't really a thing, but there was still a singularity somehow. So did singularity exist? That's my question, and that doesn't make sense in my brain. And yes, I realize that I'm making the error of argument from incredulity. So, to justify my belief in a deist God. But my thing is, yes, I've made a rational error. This is an argument from incredulity or an argument from ignorance, either one. But it doesn't affect my life at all, so I don't particularly care. And I realize that sounds dismissive.
Well, it sounds motivated. It sounds like you want to believe it. And since it's not bothering anybody and you don't feel like it's bothering you, then why not?
Well, and my thing is, when and if someone, figures out the answer to that question regarding the universal singularity and the Big Bang, when and if that question is answered and it is, released, someone at CERN figures it out and it's a huge news story, I will be an atheist that day. Up until then, I'm fine with calling myself a deist because it doesn't affect my life at all.
Well, it does affect your life enough that you're standing by it and you're having these conversations. I think if I were to push, when I was, and this is me purely speaking from personal experience, so if this is not your experience, then all you got to do is say so. But when I stopped thinking that God could potentially just be behind things, or that God is the universe experiencing itself or whatever, that for me was one of the last blocks that led to existential crisis for me. I was afraid.
Well,
and what I was afraid of was nihilism. And I think nihilism was the boogeyman on the other side of the door for me that caused me to spend longer than I needed to be in a place of just trying to find somewhere to fit God. Because in my mind, I think I needed God to be there somewhere. Because if it wasn't, then there were deeper, darker, scarier places to go that I just avoided. And for me, I didn't call myself a deist. What I did is I called myself an apatheist.
Yes, I've used that phrase as well.
Yeah. I was like, I don't care, leave me alone. And it wasn't until I came back to the table and went, oh, okay, then what are the consequences of this, that I realized that I had a whole lot more work to do. And honestly, it gave me permission to do a lot of growing. And so I'm human, and I can't help but take my experience and try and overlay it on yours, and that's not fair to you. But this is kind of where I'm coming from.
I my community that I was in when I was a kid was very unique because I grew up in like middle of nowhere, rural Kansas, and I feel like for the most part, when you say that to someone, they would like is if you ask about the church in the town that I grew up in, I feel like people would probably wonder if, people were handling snakes down at the church where I grew up in. But
Kansas? Interesting. Okay.
But and as far as I know, we don't have any crazy Pentecostal churches in Kansas, but I feel like for as much as the general person might know about Kansas, if you ask them about what's religion like in Kansas, I feel like they would kind of expect there to be some crazy people. And,
so when I think Kansas, I think more culty. If I think about like snake handling, I think more Appalachia.
Right. And obviously, yes, we do have our share of crazies in Kansas. Kansas is where the Westboro Baptist Church is. But the town that I grew up in, even though you might expect it to be a crazy place, the church I went to for the first 14 or so years of my life was a United Methodist church, and it was mostly just a communal place. It was sermons that were given there were kind of about life lessons and not much else. There was no fire and brimstone preaching, and both of my parents were a couple of old hippies. So once me and my sister essentially said, and we're not too big about going to church anymore, both of my parents were like totally fine with us, and that was kind of just the end of it.
Nice.
And so yes, I completely understand what you're saying about having an existential crisis of nihilism and being scared, because I've known people who have gone through that as well, but that was never something that affected me really. When our family was kind of removed from church, it didn't affect my life hardly at all.
Okay. That sounds pretty ideal to me. That sounds awesome. Yeah. Honestly.
And so like nihilism is something I have thought about, and yes, it's a scary concept, but it was never something that like had a large impact on me. If that makes sense.
It does. So you're definitely coming from a different place than me. And I brought it up.
I'm lucky. I fully realize it.
I brought it up this way just because if that was the case, then I wanted to bring it up and see if that helped at all,
Right.
Okay. So kind of wrapping back around to the beginning of the conversation, it sounds like you were saying that that atheists are de facto anti-theists or are behaving like anti-theists. What was the
more? I guess more than they should. Atheists are acting like anti-theists more than they should, because while yes, there are obviously religious ideas that need to be fought against. You brought up Roe versus Wade being overturned. It's someone saying, hey, I'm a deist, and I believe these couple things, and I don't preach, and it doesn't affect my life, and I'm not telling someone, hey, if you're not a deist, then you're going to burn in hell. If it's not something that is affecting that person's life or the lives of people around them, then, this is not something that we need to be. I don't see it as something that needs to be fought against, that needs to be, oh, you're a deist and you believe something that you cannot rationally prove. What's wrong with you? Like
it depends.
That's not a conversation that needs to be. But yes, it's a conversation that can be had, sure, but it's not something that needs to be argued about in such a, I guess, vitriolic way, for lack of a better word.
Could it be that you're hanging around in forums where people are specifically wanting to have conversations about that like that?
That might be part of it, yeah. I spend too much time on the internet.
Well, and there's a lot of internet to go around. The fact is that the atheist debate bro space can be pretty toxic. And I think a lot of people need to recognize that, like, you see someone like me who has this, maybe knockdown, drag out, conversation where, we're really kind of diving in and digging into things, and people see that and they go, I want to do that too. And so they look for places where they can have that experience, and then all they know how to do is bring the vitriol because they don't have the practice to bring the rest. And so you have a bunch of people who are practicing, I think, and you're probably the person that they're cutting their teeth on, and I'm so sorry that that's you. But like I feel like it's important for people to have those spaces, but you should also recognize that you might be putting yourself in that position. Shitty people are going to be shitty. It doesn't matter what you believe, and for it's true of atheists as well. So I think make sure that if I were to give any advice, it is to make sure that any groups that you're interacting in respect your autonomy and respect the lines that you draw for yourself. Because if you want to have conversations, great. But I think to say we don't need to have that conversation, it puts an onus on you and it puts a target on your head. Because if those people already aren't listening to you, do you think they're going to listen to you now that you told them what they can and can't do, or what they should and shouldn't do? No, it's just feeding the trolls. Fuck them. Yeah. Leave them. They don't need you. You're too good for that. Go somewhere where people are going to have conversations that everyone is consenting to. And then when you do want to have a conversation about, whether or not deism is justified, then you can say, I want to have a conversation about whether or not deism is justified.
Right.
Because that's I think what those people want to have a conversation with you about. And they're not wanting to talk to you about community or any of that. I think a lot of that is just assumed. But two different conversations. All right.
I've been on the phone for way too long, so thank you for letting me ramble, Eric.
Joseph, I so appreciate you. I think I'm going to get my butt handed to me in the next call, so I'm taking this.
Okay.
Let me just soak this in for a minute. Okay. Wish me
good luck.
Wish me luck. Thank you, brother. Have a good one.
You as well.
Oh no. Okay. Here we go. Philosophistry.
Hello.
Talk to me.
You're wrong, Eric.
I usually am.
All right.
What's going on?
Yeah, no, I'm not actually calling in to attack you, but you made a statement earlier about the Supreme Court and the majority not mattering, because if the majority mattered, the Supreme Court wouldn't have overturned Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
And
no, I'm still pretty solid on that.
All right. I don't think you are, though.
So I didn't say the majority shouldn't matter. I think the majority should matter. I'm just saying it doesn't. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a difference between what we want and what we have. And we want what's better than what we have. And that's good.
I actually don't disagree with any of that, and I still think you're wrong.
Tell me, how am I wrong?
Okay, so the majority doesn't matter to the Supreme Court, right? But that's actually why they kicked it back. And I don't agree with the results of them kicking it back. I think it's horrible that Roe v. Wade is overturned and then a bunch of 1869 abortion bans got put back into place. But they kicked it back because our legislators are poor, lazy legislators who never resolved it the proper way in the first place, like they should have. Like Obama was going to do it, and Clinton was going to do it. And I mean, I don't think there's ever a world where the words Bush was going to do it would come out of my mouth in a serious manner. So we know that's not real. But the fact of the matter remains that the majority does matter, but the Supreme Court is structured in a way that the majority doesn't matter to them, right? So, like, we don't vote on their decisions.
Well, but they need to take into account. So take a look at like Jim Crow laws. Mm-hmm. How did Jim Crow laws come into place? Jim Crow laws came into play when the Supreme Court took a look at segregationist legislation and kicked it back to the states to handle. Right? They did not consider. Yeah. They did not consider that the human rights needed to be protected at a federal level.
Well, but what ended up happening, though?
What ended up happening is the Supreme Court eventually did take it into account, and and Jim Crow laws were overturned. Right?
Hold on. Is Jim Crow laws were overturned, or do we now also have other laws put in place in the appropriate legislative manner that do things like provide equal opportunity for all citizens and ensure that, segregation can't happen again, but like the proper way through the actual legislative channels?
I believe 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were what?
Which would be the proper legislative channels, because the Supreme Court cannot amend the Constitution themselves at all, right?
So I hear what you're saying, and you're saying that the House, right? The House and the Senate needed to pass amendments to solidify women's bodily autonomy, right?
Absolutely. I do not in any way. I think the Supreme Court is a fantastic stop for bad laws, but I don't in any way think that the Supreme Court should be the place where new laws are generated from.
Okay. Did they try to pass a new law?
Like it was the law of the land for like 5 decades is incredibly lazy legislation when both parties have at various times had the will of the voters to actually make the legislation.
Here's the thing. What did they think was going to happen?
Oh yeah, no, I'm certain they knew that when they did this, various old anti-abortion laws put that back into place.
Yeah, let's be super clear about what the impact of that was, what they knew the impact was going to be, what motivated them to do it. Mm-hmm. So I don't see any justification for them kicking it back, because the House and the Senate absolutely should get their shit together and absolutely should do that. And the fact that instead you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, being an absolute troll on the House floor is embarrassing to our nation. Instead, and Lauren Boebert. What?
I'm just I'm sorry, man. Marjorie Taylor Greene is like, she's a national. It's just disgusting that this woman is in politics. That's my political opinion.
Well, we agree with that. So I do think that the Supreme Court, they don't make the law, but they do make sure that things are conforming to the law, right? And I think that, I'm going to get off tangent in a way that I don't think I'm fully prepared for in this one. I hadn't prepared for this conversation today. That said, if you're calling with the actually that the House and the Senate need to pass laws, okay. and the Supreme Court still shouldn't have done what they did.
I think we can both reach agreement on that. So the other reason why I called, and unrelated to that, I just had to actually you there because I'm a politic nerd and it's one of the things that I like to do.
No, I got you.
Your main question about the YouTube stuff getting demonetized.
Yes.
I forget what your line of reasoning was. You said that they're doing it to get attention, or they're doing it. What was you had thrown out a potential scenario for why before?
Yeah, I think that they are perceiving and afraid that they're going to get shadow banned, that they're not going to get picked up by the algorithm, that they'll be intentionally excluded through the algorithm if they use words like rape, suicide, and porn. And so they use other words to work their way around it. And it is a weird type of self-censoring that I'm wondering, is that actually a thing? Like, I have a YouTube channel. I am going to find out because I used those words a lot in this video.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel too, but I don't know that I don't know that I have enough viewers or followers to get to experience any of that stuff. But I have a couple of additional theories that I would like, or hypotheses that I would like to throw on the pile here. Do you want to hear them?
Go for it. Hit me, because I mean that's the whole reason I wanted to start this as the conversation topic. Is I'm confused by it. Are content creators like me just way overdoing it, or am I just what the hell's going on? Talk to me.
Okay, so my lesser plausible theory is that many of the folks you see doing that might be making videos for multiple platforms, and so they analyze the rule sets of all the platforms, and then they just pick the narrowest path forward that gets them free and clear on every platform, so that they can post clips and all that stuff onto YouTube and other platforms, right? But the one that I think is the most likely, and this is going to seem a little bit odd, but you know how a lot of people use the government as the scapegoat for their problems and then charge higher prices and this and that because of all the regulation they got to jump through and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah, it's tough times, record profits, bullshit, yeah.
Yeah, I think YouTube is so big now that YouTube has become the scapegoat. Every creator that I see doing this follows it up with, we don't want to get banned, but if you want to support the show, go to, where? Patreon, where you're going to give us a monthly... You're going to give that. So I think that YouTube has become so big that they are able to be scapegoated by the people who rely on them, and it doesn't matter to you.
So you think that some content creators are using it as a fear tactic to get people to become patrons?
Absolutely.
You know what? I could see that. I couldn't imagine all content creators doing that, obviously, but enough. Oh, that's brutal. Okay.
There's some that are emotionally aware enough that they're like, well, if I actually say that word, then people get flashbacks of what happened to them, maybe, right? And so that's the theory too, but the problem is you're talking about that subject. So either people are going to click away or not, and it's not necessarily the word might be a trigger, but if you're going to imply it, isn't the same thing happening in their head? I paint pictures mentally when people talk, so if you were to say a specific word that painted a bad picture in my head, it doesn't matter if you don't say the word anymore. You can use an alternate way, talk about that subject, and still paint the same picture in my head, right?
Yeah, that's solved by a trigger warning, not by using the word grape or unalive.
Right. So So that's why the socially, the emotionally aware one is it's plausible, but it's not really the best, right?
Yeah.
But the YouTube hypothesis is certainly is up there for me.
That is a really I do know that the algorithm so when you post a video of any type, it gets transcribed really, really quickly. And I do know that you only have so many fucks that you can say in the first 10 minutes before there's a considerable decrease in people who are showing your video. So like, I know the technology exists for it, and I know that it does get used. But the grift of it, I gotta tell you, Philosophistry, I could have done that.
Could have, but people, here's the thing that I think is the better way to use the YouTube Patreon thing. So everybody out there listening to this, I hope you understand that when creators do this, if they're constantly harping on get me on Patreon, Patreon gives you a bigger cut of revenue, and it's not that the creators don't deserve it, but the best way they should do that is just create value with their Patreon and their Discord that you don't get from just watching their YouTube alone. Create additional value. This is how the market should function. They shouldn't have to scapegoat and use fear tactics
Agreed.
to get more of your...
Agreed. So I would be remiss not to plug my Patreon at this point. So, hey, Philosophistry.
Hey.
I have been having trouble doing my Patreon stuff, mostly because the descriptions have taken me forever and I've become intimidated by them. And now there are too many of them and I got scared. So, you know what I'm doing right after this episode?
What?
I don't have all of the descriptions done, but I do have the patron-only ad-free versions of the video and the podcast all loaded up. And after this episode, I'm going to be dropping them for patrons who want to listen to an ad-free version of the podcast and to get free ad-free versions of, or not free, ad-free versions of all of the videos today. So if people did want to become patrons because they want to support the show, or they want to just get an ad-free version of the podcast, they can go to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. Did you know that?
Hey, guess what you're doing? You're creating additional value with your Patreon.
and I'm still being a shill. But I'm at least not fear mongering. Interesting. Okay. So if what I'm interested in is if anybody watching disagrees, I'm interested in if I get any other calls who are going to call you out, or I'm going to be interested in watching the comments to see what people think, because okay, I think that's what I might be taking going forward is people are utilizing that to, yeah, you're right. Instead of creating more content or creating extra value, they're using fear.
Mm. So I want to leave you with
now I will tell you, Philosophistry, what if it turns out that it does get picked up, and because I said those words, I get this video gets demonetized? Then what?
I think you need to tell your audience that on your next next episode.
True enough. Yeah.
And then we'll know.
This was perfect. Okay, I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
I have one last question that I want to leave you with before we get off the phone, because you said you were a shill, and you sounded like, oh yeah, but I'm still a shill, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Is it even a good thing to not be a shill in a capitalist society? I don't know if it is. I think promotion and shillery is the way to succeed, and seeing the way the richest people in America act, I think I'm right.
You're right, but you're in no way moral or ethical. I think if the asterisk is in capitalism, there's a massive problem.
How are you going to change it, right? You want to succeed, right? I want to succeed. So how do we change it?
Yeah, true enough. True enough. We burn it all down. That's what's going to get me demonetized right there. This is why I need to shut up and save that stuff for the Discord. You going to join us in Discord?
I'm going to join you in Discord, yeah.
Good. For people who don't know, I've been doing after shows after every episode. You do not need to become a patron. You just click that link in the description and join us on Discord for an after show. I usually do it for about a half hour. Just hang out and talk about burning it all down. Philosophistry, thank you.
Yeah, have a great show.
Will do. Take care. Okay. Oh my goodness. Ooh, okay, so we have... Okay, I'll do one more. It looks like I had a different caller, but that's okay. We have William back really quick. Wanted to follow up, and I wanted to give William the opportunity to do so. Hey.
right, yeah. So I actually, kind of thought about it a little more, and I think very fast. So this is the thing. I thought about our conversation, and you asked, like, especially when you asked, what is a chair? And I now want to change my answer, sort of.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Okay, so here's the thing. If I took two pieces of round wood that are, let's say they're both exactly 2 feet in diameter, and I stick 3 legs on them, 2 feet long, to form an equilateral triangle, and I set them up. And I sit on one, and I set a plate of food on the other. All right? And they are exactly the same. Have I made 2 chairs, 2 tables, or a table and a chair? And if I've made a table and a chair, why are they different? Except for what they're doing.
So at that point, we're getting into semantics, and I appreciate it, because that is exactly where we need to go.
Is that actually a thing? Like, is that semantics?
So do you think that words like table and chair are not nouns, but more like adjectives?
I don't know, to be honest. That's a very good question, because, like,
so
I would say yes, they're a noun, but it's almost also describing a thing at the same time. It's very weird. It's very, very weird.
So
because, like, to me, I can say that that's different because of what they're doing. But that doesn't make sense.
Majir Hein in the chat to answer whether or not it's a table or a chair, they say yes. So here's the thing. There was a really famous quote by a senator,
okay.
I want to say like 20, 30 years ago, and it was about pornography. What is the difference between art and pornography? And this senator said, well, I'll know it when I see it. And I feel like without things like ontology, without the philosophies around it, we're stuck with I'll know it when I see it, and I don't think that's good enough. So I think that is a good reason for you to get into the topic. I think it's a good reason for you to interact with it. So don't come up with. To be clear,
the reason I'm calling back.
Yeah.
To be clear, the reason I'm calling back is because, like, I sat there and, like, when I put that in my own head and, like, essentially asked myself that, I do a weird projection thing where I ask myself, like, imagining myself asking me this. I could not figure out why there is a difference, because, like, from a purely physical point of view, they're the exact same thing, but I would say I've made a table and a chair because one is functioning as a chair, but then it got into a thing of, like, does that mean that tables and chairs aren't real in a physical sense? And then I just kind of spiraled downward, and I'm like, I think this is something this is not right, and yet I don't know what to do here. So thank you on that.
So,
because I don't want to go down weird rabbit holes, but, like, yeah.
So there's
no weird rabbits today.
There's a statement. Who said it?
I don't know what
Sartre.
it is.
Sartre. He said existence precedes essence.
Okay.
I think when you're thinking about whether or not, like, instead of thinking about a specific chair, right? If you have the idea, do you ever see, like, in video games, before they add the textures to things, that you have those wireframes that animators will create for characters? Think about a chair as a wireframe, right? And the textures that you add to it, whether or not it's wood, is it brown, is it metal, is it plastic, is it tall, is it short, is it wide, is it thin, is it skinny? What are its characteristics? Those are all things that are added on to the existence of the chair, right?
Okay.
And so I definitely, I think Sartre can help there, but just look up ontology and get into it, because it's a fun path to go down.
I'm wondering if this is maybe a limitation on my troubles with abstract things. Does that make sense? Could this be an example of that?
Oh, it does. And what's what's going on, and I don't think it's an autism thing. I think what it is if we don't interact with something and we don't talk about it and we don't read about it and interact, give it enough, it does not get enough detail for us to really develop a very firm picture of it. And it stays blurry.
Okay.
And so the more you can interact with it, the better it's going to be.
Okay.
So
I'm going to start. Yeah. Is this the kind of stuff that comes up with philosophy and ontology? Because if so, I'm going to probably go insanely happy with this.
Oh, yeah. So it's true for all things. I mean, geez, I remember the very first time I had really thought about and interacted with gender as a concept. Do you think I could have understood the difference between sex and gender? Oh God, it took a lot of interacting with it for me to understand it. And then, why is it important that we keep those two separate? Because we can have more nuanced conversations, and all of a sudden it grows, and you can get this more detailed picture. And it's because you had to build into it. And that's why I recommend everybody get into philosophy, just because it gives you.
See, I guess I don't think the gender thing for me. Obviously, I'm non-binary. I consider myself trans non-binary. So. Yeah. Like I know what I was assigned at birth for sex, and I know sort of what I feel like, mm-hmm. and how that is. It's very odd thinking as far as like what man and woman are. I don't actually like fully know. I do like the idea of like having. I guess I've liked the idea of like Jungian archetypes as far as what is considered masculine and feminine, either negative masculine and positive masculine versus negative feminine, positive feminine. Because I think it's a lot more black and white, and I do like these are the rules kind of things.
You just alluded to Carl Jung, like their philosophy is the place to be. I'm telling you.
Okay.
I'm telling you.
Definitely, I will deep dive into that.
Good, do, and then call back and let us know what you come up with.
Will do, if I come up with anything.
You will, I promise.
or I might go mentally explode, one of the two, who knows?
No, what you do is
or drive my roommates crazy.
Yes, absolutely, you will do that. But also, after you do, find communities online, because there are a lot of people who are dying to nerd out with you just for that kind of thing.
Awesome. All right, cool.
Thank you for calling back.
No problem. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, I lied to you. I got another call. It's about the YouTube thing. We're doing it. Usul, how's it going?
Right. It's going well.
Good. It's going to take me a second. It would be faster if I just typed Usul instead of Lone Wolf Usul.
That's fine with me.
Okay, I appreciate that. So let me type that in while you talk to me. What's going on?
So I'm calling about the YouTube monetization thing, and just to kind of add on to what Philosophistry was talking about earlier, it's a yes and proposition on that, in my opinion. I have a channel that I do primarily court cases with.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. My ADHD absolutely latched on to the way you said Philosophistry. Your accent is the best way to ever say that. I've been saying Philosophistry as if like philo dough, and that doesn't. Philosophistry. That is, you said that word. Anyway, go on. I apologize. If I did not draw attention to it, my attention would not be on you. So talk to me.
So yeah, I do primarily court cases, and in my channel, I don't really talk over the cases unless I'm doing a live stream, which I only do once a week. Mm-hmm. So the 90 percentile of my videos are strictly the hearings that are happening in the court as they're happening at the courthouse. So I see this happen quite often, where I will have one of my videos limited due to the conversations and topics that are being had between the lawyers and the judges. And they're talking about things like child sexual assault. The biggest one that I see that gets flagged is drug-related content, especially when they're discussing specific drugs that are being charged with and that type of stuff. And it really comes around to, in my humble opinion, I think it has more to do with the expectation that YouTube has on the creator to properly mark their monetized video with the correct ad-friendly awareness
Yeah.
flags.
Well,
I know you're familiar with those things.
oh, absolutely. And for people who don't have YouTube channels, when I upload a video, I need to, it asks, hey, did you talk about drugs? Did you talk about this? Did you talk about that and the other thing? And if you say no to everything, and it turns out you did, they are much heavier on checking you because you lied. But I've absolutely marked yes on things and still been monetized just fine and not actually seen any drop in my monetization. Correct. It's just about being honest.
Correct. And you're 100% accurate as far as that's concerned. I think what most people are seeing is you have a habit of a lot of creators to be rather lazy in that they're scared that if they mark any of that stuff, that it will automatically limit their noticeability through the algorithm, which is inaccurate. It actually enhances your viewability through the algorithm. And if you mark those things properly, you're less likely to get limited than if you just say no to everything and the algorithm disagrees with you. That's really what hurts you more than anything. And if you get that limited thing on your video, then for all intent and purposes, you are quote unquote shadow banned. I think that's what most people are inappropriately using the words quote unquote demonetized and shadow banned in less appropriate manners and kind of muddying the water, because a lot of people aren't really getting demonetized where, in the traditional sense where your whole channel gets demonetized and you don't even have the opportunity to monetize a video, versus shadow ban type things.
Yeah, but people don't understand what shadow banned means, and so it's tough to do. I think I've really seen things get shadow banned. I've been there.
Yeah.
I think the best example I can think of is I was working with Holy Kool-Aid, and we were watching these really, really hardcore Christian right prophets. People call themselves prophets of God, who had these predictions that Trump was going to win in 2020. And I was watching hundreds of hours of this stuff. And by the time January 6th came around, I was just like, this is going to be terrible. Shit's going to go down. Like, for people who've been paying attention, it's going to happen. And when January 6th came, I was entirely unsurprised. I was shocked and sickened by it, but like entirely unsurprised. And so we did a video called Who Stormed the Capitol. And we actually did some real deep research before everybody was found. We actually were, diving into people's social media accounts and like finding individuals who were in the videos and like pulling them out and showing, no, this person is a radical from here. This person came from this, yada, yada, yada. And when we put it up, it was shadow banned. It did not get shown to any followers. We put a ton of work into it, and it did terribly.
Yeah, that's when you get deprioritized in the Google algorithm, not just YouTube, and you are hurt.
Oh, yeah. No, I think Thomas could have just stood up and farted into the microphone and then sent it out, and it would have gotten more views.
Probably, yeah.
So I'm blown away. But so speaking as a content creator, I definitely understood. You got to be honest. You got to mark things correctly. You can't lie about what's in your video. Just be honest, and you'll be fine. So, do you have a different take on the language thing? Why people use different words? Do you think that that's more or less likely to keep them from being shadow banned?
I think that is primarily Philo had it right, in my opinion. That people are hedging their bets. No one really knows what the real dictionary is, and I'll be honest, the secret dictionary in most people's minds is held by YouTube. I don't know that people are really hedging for other platforms, because other platforms really don't hit you as hard as YouTube does, especially with the big words that I can think of are like, do you mind if I just say them out loud? I don't think you do, right?
No, I don't.
Okay,
just hey everybody, trigger warning. I will wave at the screen after Ozil says these things. Go ahead.
Right. It's trigger warning type stuff. So like, your rape, prostitution, any type of drug, and especially fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, child rape, child prostitution, child porn, any of that type of stuff, any of those words used in that type of context, you would see, replaced with something like in our you hear us using abbreviations a lot, like SA, CSA, CP, that type of stuff. We really don't lean into like grape and all that other stuff. I think that in my mind that's more Twitterisms, but
I think they're TikTokisms.
Okay.
Yeah,
I see. I'm like you. I'm out of the TikTok.
So here's the thing. Elon Musk. Elon Musk can't even keep like massive white supremacists off of TikTok. I don't think TikTok is what's the most narrow view of things.
True.
But TikTok has been on the chopping block, and I could imagine them doing it. But either way, we will see if this gets demonetized or if this gets pushed down in the algorithm and anything like that. I will mark it appropriately. But hearing from another content creator, I appreciate your feedback, because what the hell? I think for me, like, I'm a professional video editor. I'm a consultant. I help people put together their podcasts and YouTube channels. I'm not depending on this show for income. In fact, my goal is just for the show to pay for itself, which is close to doing. So if I look into the camera and say, fuck, maybe it just doesn't, it's not as scary for me because I don't have as much writing on it than other people. So I guess that's why I wanted to bring it up, because other people whose livelihoods are tied into it might not.
Yes. And back to Philo's original point, I think the reason people hedge into just saying, hey, just in case, follow my Patreon, do this over here, is they're trying to get their eggs in more than one basket. You always hear about never have all your eggs in one basket. So they're just trying to get that monetization in more than one place. And creators like you, it's very much more appropriate when you're actually creating content. Creators like me, not so much when I'm just kind of taking publicly available content and reacting to it and making it available for other people to state. Really, all I do is make things available for people to give their opinion and have a conversation about the stories of things that are happening in other people's lives.
I love those channels, and you're absolutely creating content and value. So don't say that about yourself. Legal does a great job and is absolutely doing the same thing as that. There's a lawyer who has cats. I forget his name, but I watch him pretty regularly, and he's just got all the tea.
Mike?
When it comes to, say again?
Mike, maybe? Law Talk with Mike?
No.
I'm trying to think. Cats. I know a lot of these guys.
He's been like going over all the stuff with Illuminati.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I can't recall the name.
I know. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. This is
we don't want to be advertising a bunch of other people's YouTube channel. Your channel right now is the most important one. So
actually, Usul, I disagree. I grew most, and I've seen other people grow most when I viewed things as a rising tide that lifts all boats. And, if I like something and I want to promote it because I know it, I should be able to talk about it. The idea that, oh, no, my patrons might go somewhere else. Someone might watch another. Are you kidding me? I get sick of my own shit. Why would I expect other people not to? Like, grow each other, and then they can grow you in turn. When it comes to mentioning other channels, the only thing that I stay away from is promoting channels that I haven't watched myself or like vetted, because I made the mistake of doing that and like platformed some shitty people in the past. That said, no, so if from one content creator to another, a rising tide lifts all boats, and the creation of community is what gets people soaring. So definitely don't be afraid of doing that.
Absolutely an amazing attitude to have, and I hope you keep it.
I'm doing my best. My bitter ass is trying my best. Usul, thank you for calling in.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for talking to me. You have a great day.
You too. Oh, no. Hold on. We're not done. That was the wrong thing. Let's try this again. Okay, 1 second. Robert in Massachusetts, are you there?
Hi, I'm right here.
Hey, wanting to talk about the concept of forgiving a non-omni God? Robert.
Yep.
You called 14 minutes ago.
Yes, I did.
This conversation needs to be longer than the amount of time I have for you now.
I can call back next week if you want.
I would very much want that. Could you do that?
Yeah, no problem. I've called the show a couple times before, back when both you and B were doing it. Miss you, B, by the way.
I miss them too. They're in the UK right now for a conference. And I know, right? I'm jealous. Anyway.
Well, anyways, yeah, well, just to give you a reason why I'm calling in about this, I actually called into another Skeptic show earlier this week to discuss this, but it's and I'm basically making my own saying, what does this person think about this? What does this person think about this? I just want different perspectives on it, and plus, when I was on the show, the audio was kind of choppy, so I figured I might as well try again here.
So you sound so good. I'm really looking forward to our talk next week. Definitely, please do call back.
Definitely. It's I have no problem doing that, Eric.
Take
care.
You too. Take care. I'm looking forward to that. I wish that I had more time to give it. I do want to read some super chats, though. So the cat got some attention. Misdemeanor, thank you for your super chat. So, Misdemeanor says, leave no coffee behind. All glory to Arabica in the mug. I'm making coffee immediately after this show. I did not get to before the show, and I am so feeling it. Allegedly Human, thank you so much, says, for our feline overlords. Yes, absolutely. I love my cat, and I'm glad you guys do too. So this has been definitely an interesting episode. So I have been working to do color correction, audio fixing, and all of that stuff for all of the back episodes. And I'm going to be posting the ad-free version of the podcast and the live streams to Patreon. Once I make my coffee, I'm going to do that today. I'm also going to be hopping into Discord to do an after show, and I'd really love if you joined me. That'd be a lot of fun. But if not, or you can't make it, or you're watching this later, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next week. And until next time, I'm glad we had this talk. Oh, wait. Patreon.com/SkepticGeneration. Thank you to everyone who supports the show. See you next week.